So, I mean, obviously, it's good the way you phrase it. It's good because what your words are saying. We have to use innovation. We have to find new technologies. That's always good, and that technically is going to lead to increase in GDP. No, because we are going to, in long term, it's always good to improve the processes, to make things faster in some sense, and to use less work for that. In some sense, I'm quite hesitant on this topic. This is the reason why I came here. I hope you'll change my opinion. But when I hear that we need to focus less on GDP, what I hear is we need to make less money. And I'm like, why? And I'm just like, what? And I want to expand on that, because if we look at Europe together, all right, that's good. But if we look at countries alone, it's politically quite strange move to do, especially when near our countries is going on a war going on. And that's just thinking on defense point. It's less money for defense, less money for investments, for new businesses. And in that sense, I do agree that we should focus more on like nature, that we should make sure that the species don't die out. I think just some balance. So I'm really interested in hearing you out and seeing what's gonna happen here. Yeah.
Okay, so the thing is that GDP growth does not necessarily mean that your wages or your wages and the money you earn is increased. Because, for example, even new technology, we can just look historically. It is a statistical fact that whenever efficiency of creation of commodities that were created has increased, it was used to then make more, not to, so whenever new technologies were there, they keep rising instead of staying on the same level as before, just with less resource use. And the thing is that I completely understand your worries. This would mean, I can read you one quote by Hickel. For instance, if we were to ban planned obsolescence and double product lifespans, this would lead to a reduction of commodity production and throughput, and therefore probably also a reduction in GDP. But use value would clearly improve. If we scaled down the automobile industry and expanded public transport, cycling, and pedestrian accessibility, the GDP of the transport sector would decline, but access to mobility would improve. If we limit advertising, product sales will decline, but people's sense of well-being would improve. Here he cites a paper that shows that advertisement has a negative effect on mental well-being. Or if we commodify the US healthcare system and guarantee universal access, the GDP of the healthcare sector will decline, but access to healthcare provisioning will improve. And the thing is that when we talk about degrowth, we talk about that specific sectors, like, the term commodification. I'm not sure if Marx invented it or it's just the most used in his argumentation, but commodification is when a primarily free resource is being valued so that you can sell it. So for example, if you commodify nature, it would mean you have to pay to go into the forest. And that's been done to a lot of things, like water. And instead, if we decommodify key social goods, and instead focus on making these public services, that would be a benefit to all, but other sectors like the production of giant mansions and yachts, those are giant industries, or the car industry. If we scale that down and instead use the same money in these social sectors like education, healthcare, well-being, psychology, then we still have the same amount of money and resources, we just start to allocate them differently. And to do that, there's also the talk about, I don't know, it's a big thing in Germany currently, talking about the 4-day work week. I don't know how far it is spread throughout Europe, but the idea is, as most of you probably know, to work, I think is it 30 hours instead of 40, or 40 hours within 4 days, so that you have more free time. And expanding on the 4-day work week, we could also, or Hickel argues, that we could advocate or make public service jobs a necessity, so that you are always going to be able to find a job working for the public sector. So working on education, working on social well-being, but not working on creating another yacht, or not working on creating another private jet, but that these sectors move around so that people can still get employed, can still earn money, and but also have the social care system that they don't need to work 3 jobs or 2 jobs to support themselves. I spoke a lot.
Yeah, but very important words, and maybe to underline this in easy words. So degrowth, like I tried to also to explain in the beginning, doesn't necessarily mean we need to decline like everything. So we definitely need to grow at certain points, which are very important for the public sector. And most important, and this is the difference, maybe the rich north and the global south, so there's a huge difference in GDP. So first of all, we need them at the global south to grow, that we satisfy and meet their human needs, and that they have fresh water, that they have sanitization, that they have food, that they have everything they need to live a life with well-being. So, but the luxury side of the theory, so mostly our countries, Europe, we need to degrowth definitely with the parts which are not necessary for our life. So we don't need like big boats. I have chosen the example with the mobility. So I have read that more and more cars are released that are going to be bigger and bigger. So everyone who has money is buying a big SUV. Is this necessary? Do you know where SUV is coming from? So it was really a rural car which was needed for bumpy roads. But nowadays, a big SUV is like a status symbol, so that I can express, hey, I'm somebody, I have money. So that's like for nothing. That's stupid behavior, and we need to diminish such consumption behavior. And so on this side, we need definitely to degrowth, but on the other side, to stay on a very good level of infrastructure, we need to develop our public transportation, including trains, including buses, including subways, including bicycle roads. So everything what is needed that we can continue mobility in a sustainable way. Yeah, you want to say?
Would you say that, I just want to have one small question, would you say car sharing is part of degrowth, or is it not?
Definitely. So, I mean, the sharing economy is much better than the economy we currently have. So, I don't know which percentage is acceptable, but imagine if you're not living in a city, you're living in a rural area. Sometimes, okay, it would be very cool if there is a bus regularly that you can move to the city. But at least if there is the possibility to use a car for your transportations, for your buyings, if you have children, you bring them to school, and if you share it with 2 or 3 neighbors, it would be much better rather than having every person living there its own car. So on the one side, it's reducing the production of cars because they are not requested anymore. And on the other side, the cars we have in place, they are used much more. So there are figures that 95% of the living time a car, or during a time during the day, a car is parked. It's not even used. So this is like a figure which is really sad, because we have so many cars and then they're not even used that often. So they are just using space which could be used for public installations and infrastructure. Does this answer your question a little bit? Okay. Inga, yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'm just thinking, also getting back to the first question, that is, it requires such a strong consciousness that maybe it should be taught in schools, you know, how to differ your needs and your wants, and to just be blind before all those advertisements that are bumping you each day. Yeah, that exercise for your future, the tough one when you start your first position, and after a couple of months, 3 months, 4 months, you probably step up and receive a raise in your salary, and like try to try to live just the same as you lived before, and not to you know, buy more things. You are happy that you had a raise, and yeah, and you suddenly somehow your wants also grow, and that's really tough, like a will will thing to refuse. I'm with the car, I'm not owning the car in principle. I'm 36 and I don't have a driving license from the principle, and it's tough. I know why I'm doing this, but sometimes when I drag my like suitcase with my sports gear through the snow and waiting for 15 minutes for the public bus, I'm thinking like, that's it, I'm gonna have a driving license. That's it. But I still don't have it. So yeah.
Totally agreeing with you. So to live after or upon the degrowth theory is not very easy, and it means like leaving the comfort zone. So and this radical change of our society, I mean, it's a really innovative theory. We need to discuss whether this is possible or like very utopic to reach, but these are the questions we are faced to. So I mean, you all have come here by plane, by train, don't know. You all have like, I have thought about the example of clothes. So we all have different clothes with us that we have a good appearance, that we have business casual. So, but when it comes to clothing, so according to the degrowth theory, it says also that it's not necessary that I need to buy like 50 shirts in a year, or that I have 20 trousers. So maybe 2 trousers and 3 shirts are sufficient, and then I wash them sustainably without how is it called in English? Yeah, no, but the thing you put the chemicals, yeah, or stuff like that. Okay, so you try to be as sustainable as possible, and so then it starts like everywhere in daily life. And I don't know. I have 2 watches now, 1 watch and 1 smartphone. Is maybe the smartphone sufficient if it's also used as a watch? So you need to look where are your basic needs satisfied, and the surplus and the extra stuff might be refused or rejected if you want to attempt a certain level on our planet.
Yeah, I was going to do it to you.
Ah, you want to? Okay.
There's a very interesting concept from Latin America called the buen vivir, the good life. And intentionally, it's called good life, not better life, because it's focused on, and I think it's similar for degrowth, and I would be interested in knowing what the differences maybe are, to ensure that everyone has a good life, has sufficient food, transport, healthcare, whatever people need, but that there is no need for this better, this always more, this always nicer, faster, whatever it is. And one very famous like presenter of this theory. She was traveling around Europe to present the idea, to talk about it. And always as an example, she gave that she's traveling with two dresses, because one she's wearing and the other one can dry or be washed and whatever. So you don't need as much, I think, as we have. And I think one challenge and maybe even misunderstanding of degrowth and the when we read and concepts like that is that it doesn't make our lives worse. It just focuses on having what you need, but not putting this pressure on the environment by having too much, by having things we don't need, by now also having these strategies on how you can clean and like tidy up your space because we have too much. So getting rid of the things we don't need and focusing on the stuff we really need and ensuring that everyone has access to those basic and not only basic, but the good living aspects that we need and everyone should have.
Do you want to add directly to that? Yes, then you can go first.
I think that the concept you said, bon vivir, maybe it is related to minimalism or it's something else. I think it's going in a similar direction. Because I think that the ideology of minimalism is almost the same, like living with the least you can, like owning just what you need, so you don't have any much more than that. And I was going to add that I think we need to have the degrowth in mind because we cannot grow forever, for infinity. At some point we need to stop, I think, because it's impossible. So maybe, I mean, our current economy is linear, so it's going just up in a linear way. Maybe we should like make it circular to reuse and just focus on what we have now and how we can reuse it again. Thank you.
Two great points. Minimalism is what shares a lot of aspects with degrowth, but what needs to be stated here is that minimalism nowadays is often something done by middle-class people who have the possibility to do minimalism, who have the possibility to buy expensive clothing that will last, which is great. I would love for everyone to have linen clothes that they can get tailored perfectly, but it's not an option for everyone. And you were talking about well-being, and I can't pronounce it. When we read. Now the thing is, at the end of this, I'll give you a QR code. If you are interested, there is a Google Docs link with the papers we used. At least I used. I don't think yours are included, but I think they were also in German, what you were reading. You can still add them though, if you want. I can add them later on. And there will be papers, and one of the paper goes into depth about how degrowth is similar to also Ubuntu. I think that was the word because I couldn't find it in the PDF now, and I'm not just going to read from the PDF. If you are interested, the article goes a bit into it, and we'll have further reading into the article. And talking about well-being. So Millward, Hopkins et al. Did a study, and they were defining well-being. And they were making mathematical equations to see how everyone, like imagine the poorest countries, Laos, and the richest countries, I don't know, Iceland, if they're all on the same level globally, we could have 60% less emissions. And this would work with these limitations, quote unquote, because for the poor people, these are not limitations, these are huge steps upwards. And this includes a lot of food, like 2,000 to 2,200 calories per day on average. This might raise or be lower on your needs. A cooker per household, a fridge, 4 to 3 people living per house with at least 15 meters floor space per person for just sleeping, illumination, 50 liters of water daily for every single person on the planet. 20 of those liters will be heated, so you can take baths, you can take showers. Waste management will be provided in every house. Clothing, 4 kilograms of new clothing per year is included in this. 80 kilograms of washing per year. 200 meters in a hospital. Education per person, 200 square meters. Education, 10 meters square per person. This is all mathematical, so they're like, they have to quantify it. Phone per person, computer per person, internet access per person. Mobility, 5,000 to 15,000 kilometer per year, I think. If I'm reading this correctly, and that will, of course, be together with the infrastructure. And if you really think about this, the only thing about this that might be a bit strange is living with 3 to 4 people in a household. But we all did this when we were younger, unless we have not moved out of home, which I haven't. I'm a student. I can't afford to move out. And it's completely doable to live sustainably and happily together. And this is talking about well-being. So this would actually give the opportunity for every person to have a good life with healthcare access, internet access, food, waste, everything.
Yeah, so also to sum this up, degrowth doesn't mean that we need to go back to Stone Ages. So we still can remain lots of things what we are already used to it. So it means only that we need at a certain stage consider the environmental boundaries, and that we more focus on human well-being, like for everyone, not for only me, but for everyone, and that I think critically about my unnecessary consumption, where can I save, and yeah, that we have a stable level of well-being everywhere. And also, I think it was, I don't know, this paper or in another one, it says that we can go back to was it a GDP or energy consumption of 1960? And even though we are 3 times bigger as a population on the planet, but we can go back to this energy consumption of 1960 without making any adjustments. With making adjustments, but at the level what you have mentioned, so that we can retain at least this living standard to satisfy our human needs.
I think that was even specifically saying we can go back to 1960s levels of living, not even the ones I was reading, but the ones we had in 1960, even though we have 3 times the population size, just because nowadays we are overproducing so much. And that was also, once again, a lot from us. Do you have anything you want to add or ask or discuss, or you don't agree with?
All right, so you changed my opinion. Well, I don't think you really changed my opinion, but I think I just mistook this term with another term that is in this field with something else. But yeah, I'm just like listening to you, and it just sounds like degrowth is basically creating more efficient processes with less resources than currently. And just thinking from business perspective or government perspective just makes sense. Just makes sense. Like you use less things, you make them more efficient. Yeah, it just makes sense. I like it.
But we're gonna take a lot of years to change the business mindset that it's constant like that going. I mean, business like the efficiency, but they're still gonna go for more. So I don't know. it's up to people in this room in their positions to like slightly step by step introduce this idea maybe to your bosses. I wish you luck.
Thank you. You mentioned the business mindset, but isn't it the capitalist mindset? Because, like, from what I know about degrowth, and I know very little, it basically isn't possible within capitalism, because the main goal of capitalism is growth in every sector, in every aspects of our lives, whether it's for the well-being of the planet or people. But basically, yeah, that's the main goal of capitalism. So this isn't possible within our current economical system. So this is a rather tricky question. I don't know whether there's an answer for it, but how can we change the system, which has been here for decades, maybe centuries, and which many people benefit from, like the people in business, the billionaires and so on, who hold so much power, and they just don't want to let it go. And even like people who don't benefit from capitalism, they often believe they do, and it's good. So how can we change the narrative? Is it even possible to do it in a safe way? And because often when I mention it to someone who's like not very degrowth oriented, they start talking about communism and stuff like that. So yeah.
Does any one of you want to answer to that?
You want to have a try? I mean, this is really a very important question because, yeah, as the theory is very new and innovative, we don't have an answer yet, and we need to escape from the system. But Inga, maybe you have an idea.
Yeah, so I just remembered the Lisa. I would quote Lisa now, my young ambassador. She said that like every time you buy the makeup powder, right? Because you believe you are not beautiful enough without this powder, someone buys a yacht, you know, from your money. So just a change in the thinking that I don't need this. I'm good as I am. And then they don't profit. And then the system starts cracking. I mean, they don't profit. They don't have enough money from what they created. And they have to start thinking somehow differently.
Yeah. Well, from individual perspective, you can always, there's a thing other people say, you can vote with your dollar. So if nobody is going to spend money on a certain product, they're not going to produce it because they're going to look at the numbers and like, this is not profitable. This is not for good for business. We're not a charity. Let's stop doing that. Let's do what our customers are going to buy. That's one thing. And the other thing is, I mean, I'm not sure if I completely understand it still. I'm just looking at it, and it also makes sense. And from business perspective, that you use less resources, that means less expenses, and that means, all right, you are still producing more, but you have that in mind that you want to use less resources always, because that's good for your business because you're less expenses. Yeah, but
so we need to come to an end, but maybe 1 or 2 comments.
I have adding to this individual and business thought, one more political thought. One thing that I learned during my master studies, and which I thought was for me like eye-opening, even though it's not like a very complex thing, but that there are so many things called externalities that we don't count. Like businesses don't have to pay always for the pollution they create. For some things, yes, maybe they have to pay, but there are so many aspects that are not valued in the negative sense. So you don't have to pay for air quality or for making it worse, for water and so on, especially in countries where regulations are lower. So if you make it more difficult for companies to produce in a harmful way, they'll sooner or later stop doing that or try to find more sustainable solutions. And I think none of the 3 ways we mentioned can go on its own, but all 3 together can certainly have an impact and make us at least move to more well-being and less growth-oriented pathway.
I will be quick just to add to, for example, with the planned obsolescence, we can work against that with EU laws, with the right to repair stuff. So, for example, if EU will pressure Apple to repair the iPhones or to change the batteries or to have it able to being repaired, self-repaired. The same is with cars, for example. If we would, yeah, I'm finishing. So, for example, when in Cuba they stopped importing cars, everyone started to take care of the cars better, and they look like new right now still. So that's the difference, because when people have the option to buy new, and sometimes it's cheaper than to fix the old things, it's easier for them.
Yes, thank you, everyone. One last very quick, okay, Thor is gone, I can take 1 minute. The thing you were asking about how to do it, it must be a democratic process that probably cannot function within capitalism. And there are grassroots movements are needed to do this, and coalitions with ecologists and labor unions, because labor unions nowadays, which makes sense, are looking to heighten profit for the workers, but maybe instead they should also focus on the 4-day work week. 4-hour work week would be amazing. Yeah, fuck 4 days. Let's go for 4 hours. Aim high or aim low. Yes, and I passed around the QR code. I should have changed it that everyone who has the link can change it as well. So there are documentaries, YouTube videos, papers on there about this topic. If you find something that you want to add, you can also put it on there. You should be able to add this. Please do not delete anything. That would be nice. And you can come back and look at it in a few days in case anyone has added something. That should be all in the papers. A lot of the questions that were asked, and I am looking you directly in the face, Thor. I will not take long. Most of the questions you asked, I can't answer time-wise. They are in the papers and documentaries. A lot of answers. It's possible.
Welcome to our presentation and workshop Climate Unites Us. At first, we would like to introduce ourselves. So my name is Sasha, and this is Paťka. Both of us are from Slovakia, as you didn't know that. And we are young climate ambassadors of Game On. And yet that's basically how we met. And as young ambassadors, we started our own projects, and one of them is the one we are going to talk about today. Maybe you want to tell something about your project and yourself?
Okay, so about my project, it won't be discussed much in this presentation, but briefly, I made a Instagram platform that gave the information to basically young people about the climate change and about different topics. Yeah, so we will start.
So this session is going to have 2 parts. First one will be a presentation about event organization and about the event I organized a year and a half ago. And the second one will be a short workshop.
Okay, so what does it take to form an idea into reality? First, you need to have an idea and then then make a plan. The plan consists of different topics you need to cover and you need to think of. We will discuss them through this presentation, so I won't mention them right now. Also, you need to have sponsors and find a good location, and also the timing is very important.
So you have an idea and you want to create that idea and actually do something. So the first thing is an idea, and what should that idea consist of, or what questions you should ask yourself when you get that first initial impulse. So the first thing is, what are your expectations about the event? What you wanna do? Why do you want to do it? What's the mission? And like, what do you want to give people by doing that event? You also should know your target group and think about whether you have any previous experience in this field. And if not, or even if you do, are there any people in your surroundings who can help you with that, or you can ask for help, or maybe some organizations, or just resources overall, you can take advantage of when planning your event. Also, very important thing is whether you have a team. Of course, if you're doing a small event, you can organize it on your own, but I would highly suggest, based on my personal experience, to have a team, because obviously the more people, the more knowledge you have, the more ideas you have, the more resources you have to plan anything. And also during the event itself, it's really good to have that additional support and to take care about the stuff and not just be there on your own. Plus, it is a great thing because you create some sort of community by working in a team rather than just working on your own as an individual. So you answer these questions and you have some sort of idea, and now you should continue with some additional research to basically high up the chances of your project and your event to be successful. You should try to think about whether there are similar events or projects in your surroundings, and if so, how can you make that your event more original and not just copy paste something that already exists. But also you can approach people from these projects and ask them for help, or maybe for some type of collaboration. Maybe you can invite them to be a part of your program, or maybe just like learn from their experience and learn from the stuff they did. And also you can take inspiration from where they organized the event and so on. Really important question which you should answer in the beginning is where you want to organize your event. This is really essential because it will affect everything from finances to program to who is your target group and basically everything related to the event. You shouldn't just start planning everything without knowing where you want to do it, because then in the end what can happen is that it won't work out at all because those things just won't match.
Okay, so the big part of creating an event is financing. There are different types of like ways of financing an event. The most popular are grants, sponsorship, and crowdfunding. You can do also a combined version. We like Sashka's event was financed by grants by Game On, which made things easier. But also, as she mentioned about the about the place of the event, that can be also very helpful because the technical things can be also covered by the place where it's.
Yeah, so we're not going to really talk in depth about financing your event, but what we want to answer is whether it is possible to organize event with minimal resources and like how to minimize your expenses. So in my case, the event I organized was super low cost, and that was also because I found a really good place where to organize it. It was a cultural center, and they offered me additional support and stuff like technical support. And they also had like additional resources which helped me to pay for things. What I would highly suggest is that do not just focus on one source of income and try to combine them. Even if the event you're organizing isn't really big, you should still opt for some sort of sponsorships, maybe just to ask local companies or just national companies to give you some sort of things and products you can use in organizing your event, because this in the end can save you a lot of money. Also, important thing I would like to mention, especially if it's something you're doing on your own, on a really small team, and it isn't something you're doing for profit, there's a pretty big chance you can find people and organizations which will be willing to help you and take part in your event even without having anything like any financial profit from it. Of course, you shouldn't like count with that, because people have other stuff they can do with their time and their energy and their knowledge. But the thing is that it is possible to definitely invite professionals, NGOs, activists, and like anyone without having to invest like a lot of money in this part of the event. If you don't have those resources, obviously, if you have money, it would be nice to pay people for their work. So then there are like 3 parts or like 3 categories we created. When you know, so now you know like where you want to organize your event, you have like the main mission, you know who's your target group, and based on then you should start creating the program based on like what kind of event you're going to do. You have to decide whether you just want main program, that's especially if the place where you're planning to do it is like really small and it should be like really small scale, or you also want some accompanying program. This can be great, especially if you want to attract more like age category. So you can have, for example, some panel discussions and some workshops going parallelly, so people just can choose what they want to do and enjoy their time. And then also write down a list of potential guests, organizations, or like anyone who should be part of that event. And of course, start sending out the invitations to them. And I would highly suggest to do this in advance, because you never know what can go wrong, and it can happen that like you plan to invite 10 people and 6 or 7 of them will tell you no, so you need to have plan B. Also, other category are important people. So whether you have a team or not, you will need some additional help. You will need some, let's say, volunteers who will help you to prepare the space and run different things and activities throughout the event, whether it's like selling tickets or just helping people move around and stuff like that. You also need someone who will most likely moderate the event. You can do it on your own, but it can get pretty chaotic and you may not have enough time like to do everything. So you should definitely try to solve this in advance and think about, will I be able to do it on my own, or should I invite someone to do it and to moderate the event itself, but also, for example, different discussions. And then you also need someone who will take care of technicalities, especially if you're doing it like in a small culture center or stuff, or like place like that. They also have their own people and their own staff who know the place the best, so you should talk to them and they can probably provide it. Sometimes you might need to pay those people, sometimes not. It's really individual. And then there are just some other must-haves you should think of, and which aren't like super essential, but they are definitely something important for your event. What I would like to highlight is, as I mentioned, try to find sponsors. For example, what I did is that I emailed different companies from Slovakia, and I managed to get like different really interesting products we then used in a, how do you say tombola? In a lottery. So it was like basically a nice cherry on the top of the cake. It wasn't something like what would make the event the best of the best, but it made us to help it more interesting. And what's perhaps even more important, that the money we raised thanks to this lottery, we then gave it to an NGO. So that was like additional nice thing. And yeah, I think you can continue with this.
Okay, so the big part of events are marketing, because you need the people to come to your event. That's how you, that's how you see how successful it will get. There are different ways of there are different ways of doing marketing. It also depends on what kind of age group are you focusing on. If you are focusing on young people, I would say it's the most the most efficient way is doing advertisements on social media, because young people are spending their time on probably mostly Instagram, TikTok, and other social medias. It won't be that efficient in posters or local news, because they are not really reading them. But if you want to get to elderly people, it's very important to put the advertisements in the news. Also, spread the information in some groups. Whether if you are like doing maybe some artistic event, you need to you need to get there some artistic people. So you can put the advertisement in some cultural places or in some art gallery. Yeah, do you think Instagram and Facebook profiles are important? What's your opinion?
Yes, for sure.
I think it might depend how much time do you have beforehand, before the actual event, because if it's like a week, I'm not sure if you can gather a lot of followers, and if it can help you, maybe you can just promote it on your private social medias, and that might do the job as well. But if it's something that you do regularly, I don't know, every 2 months, every year, let's say, like we have big festivals in Slovakia and generally in Europe, they have their own Instagram profiles. So it's something with regular agenda, I believe it's much better to create profiles. But if it's something you do once and you create the account a week before the actual event, I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
Like how you mentioned the time, I think when you are planning something, it's always better to do it like really as much advance as is possible, like that Instagram profile or anything, like some place where the people will see the event.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree that especially if you're preparing something small and like one-time session in UN, it doesn't really make sense to invest your time, energy, and resources into creating a whole new account or website. But it's better to use what you already have. So it's like account of, or like your personal account or like the account of your another project, and just like share it with the people, because you can use the time much better than just by creating stuff on Instagram. But at the same time, you need to think about things such as graphics and marketing, because you also either need people for that or you need to do it on your own, and that can be quite hard depending on your skills. But one thing I would like to highlight is that if you're planning to do paid advertisement on social media, you should also do it in advance, because especially if it's something climate related, Facebook considers like climate change and environmental topics as like social issues, which if you want to promote, you need to get your account verified, because they need to know who is paying for that stuff. And this process can take quite long. I didn't know that when I wanted to pay for the advertisement. So what happened is that the advertisement was working, but then it stopped working and they blocked it, and I wasn't able to continue with it because my account wasn't verified. So just don't count of that okay, 3 weeks before the event I will pay for the post and it will get too many people, because it doesn't have to work like that. So now a little bit of the behind of the scenes of the Climate Unites Us. So this is the poster. I did it on my own, so that's what I was thinking about when I said that you need people who will do like graphics and stuff like that. This definitely is like far from professional, but I had people to discuss it with. So it was like presentable, but it could have been like much better. And so yeah, I'm just going to show you some photo. No, it's okay. Okay. So how did it all start? Basically, the order of events was very similar to what I was mentioning before in general. But the first thing I did was that I found premises. This is the culture center where the event took place. It is called Hyde Park. It is located in my basically home city. And it was one of the best choices I could have made, because I met very like supportive people there who were willing to help me with the organization. And basically it is their work to do that. They work for that center, but at the same time they are really enthusiastic and they care about young people and participation and stuff like that. So it was much better than, for example, going to somewhere where they don't really support you. They just want to take your money and like take the premises and do what you want on your own. And they also was a part of one European like grant program and scheme, thanks to which they were able even to sponsor my event. So then I started figuring out the program. I knew that I wanted to
do not only the main program, but also some extra activities you could take part in. For example, such as workshop where you could have like prepare, I don't know how to call it, but basically things to put on your t-shirts and clothes and to make it more interesting. I also invited several NGOs who were able to present their activities, and like the point of that was to people show like the work of these NGOs and, for example, join them. For example, there was a local Greenpeace group, so people could have approached them and they could talk about their activities and they could took part in Greenpeace. Yeah, a huge part of organizing this event was emailing. So I had to write many emails to people I was inviting, but also to the sponsors I mentioned. And it was just a lot of writing. It was usually pretty effective, but also it didn't work all the time. Sometimes you just need to solve stuff by phoning someone or, of course, like meeting in person. And yeah, and these are the cherries on top of the cake. I would say that especially if you're doing something really small, it is important to think about the details, because you don't have budget to make something like super great and something what will make people speechless, but you can do really small things which won't cost you a lot and which will make the event like more cozy or more interesting or more original. So for example, what we did is that we put there this board and people could have leave notes there or and stuff like that and just share their thoughts. And we also created like this photo wall, and it basically looks like some sort of protest because there were different transparents, and it turned out to be the best thing because the most beautiful photos from the event are in front of this wall. And it was also a nice activity because people who came early were able to like actually paint it and write that stuff. So the whole point of the event from the very beginning was to unite people who are interested, who care about environmental and climate issues, and to show them that they are not alone in their fight and that there are more people who care and the people they should and can engage with. So yeah, that's why it was called Climate Unites Us, and I really hope that during the day the climate united us. And this is why we prepared a short workshop to make you maybe think a bit about how climate activism or climate engagement is making impact on your life in this time in a positive way, because the fact that we have to care about climate is sad. Let's say it's sad. It's often disappointing because we shouldn't fight for something that basic. We shouldn't fight for survival. We shouldn't fight for having a livable planet. But we decided to do so. It was probably a conscious decision. But I think that in order to stay motivated and in order to have strength to continue in this fight, it's good to remind ourselves that it also can bring many good things into our lives. So now it's your turn to think about those things. And at first, we are going to hand out you these papers and pens. And you will have 10 minutes there are some prompts you can answer, but you can just write whatever you want and whatever you feel like you want to write. You don't need to like answer every single question. They are there solely to make you like understand what you should be thinking about and like contemplating and stuff like that. So now, if you want, you can share some of your ideas or think you wrote down or you were thinking about, if you feel like you want to share it with others. If you don't have to, but it would be nice to have maybe a short conversation.
I have contribution for like the first question, and I would like to share that thanks my climate activism engagement, I meet so many new friends, and those people were really inspired me. And also I could see a different point of view from like different cultures, from different countries. Also now I feel more like a world citizen, that I can see topics from like the global perspective, and also that I also feel among these people safe to share my opinion, because I know they are open-minded and they can understand me, and we have some common topics which connects us.
I have a very similar point. I met a lot of people that are open-minded, and they also taught me how to be more open-minded myself, and how to be more patient with things. And also I realized that climate and climate change is something, it's a really sensitive topic, and it has to be communicated very mindfully, especially in some specific communities. And therefore, I was also taught with the experience, but also by other people, how to communicate climate crisis mindfully to the community I'm presenting it to, because it can evoke any kind of emotions, and we don't want to like make them anxious and depressed, anything. Yes.
I agree with the previous ones on this one. So.
Of course, life has changed completely. Yeah, so I have a complete different background. Most of you know about it. So I've been an artist, so became a climate aware person, like along artists. Like I became something like a weirdo, of course. But yeah, having vast conversation people, that was my first experience. Like it was kind of a BlaBlaCar service in Hungary. You know, I was working in the countryside, and I always had to like commute between Budapest and the city called Miskolc. It's close to Košice, and I always had vast conversations with people. I always met people, which like-minded people. We had opened this topic like climate change, and something has started. And just the other experience, what I just had last week, we've been guests in Hungary. I was just introduced this couple, and it was so hard for me push myself to keep patient, like with them, like watching how different they live in their life, you know, what they are consuming, how they are, you know what I mean. So it's like it's not easy, like being patient people, not like-minded people who are not considering climate change as a fact.
Well, so as you can see, I'm not belonging to your generation. I'm one of the older ones, but I'm been active in different climate movements for more than 23 years now. And actually, a big international organization and the UN started to talk about climate change about 50 years ago already. So they said that somewhere in the future, if we go on polluting like this, ice will melt, sea will rise, things like that. But nobody cared. And even about 20 years ago, when I was working in a climate movement, nobody really knew what is climate change. So our preliminary goal was just to tell people what is it, and to highlight their attention. Nowadays, it's much different because everybody knows that. We can feel it on our skin, like we see the disasters all around the world. But in my time, it was not known, because sun was shining and everything was like, you know, before. But there were some signs that it's coming. So we had to really highlight the attention. At that time, I was part of Greenpeace. I even worked with the Slovakian Greenpeace a lot, with Juraj Rizman and Martin Hojsik, probably you heard of them. And we were like touring around, you know, in the region, telling people that climate change is here and we should go to renewables and so on. But it changed a lot because now everybody knows that. So it's now your turn actually to focus on the solutions, I guess. So like really what to do, how to completely reform our way of life and the systems of our civilization, such as the economy or transportation. Everything needs to be rethought, and paradigm change is needed. So, but obviously, when I was there like 20 years ago, I made a lot of friendship. I had very good experience, and we had very similar, workshops, meetings, actions, everything. So every generation, and it's always the young generation which has the motivation, the energy to do that. So now it's your turn, but I hope that the next generation will not have to focus that again too much. We'll see. Thanks.
Thank you. So actually the question regarding climate journey that captured my attention the most, it came up to my mind that when I was 12 years old, 25 years ago, there was a call to create a model for a passive or sustainable house and how we would do that. And that was the very first time when I heard about climate change, when I heard about sustainability, and then didn't have a clue about that. Nothing. Now I realized that I didn't have access to information in general. We didn't have books. I didn't know foreign languages. So this kind of obstacles that currently are not that obvious because I speak languages and I have internet, etc. But it makes my life much easier to learn about climate change. But there are lots of people who don't have access to these really basic things, even though we have already books in local languages around this. There are a tremendous amount of research behind climate change and in general sustainability. I have to admit that I'm really lagged behind in this topic. I am really on the consumer side. And I realized that it's not easy to catch up because of the tremendous amount of information and because of that stress that it generates in me, and I have kind of a limited capacity to digest that kind of, not only the information, but these kind of ideas or tips and tricks and whatever new methodology, how you wash your clothes, how you can, you really have to change your lifestyle. And when you already get used to kind of a lifestyle, you're in your comfort zone, that is creating your comfort zone, you really have to take efforts to step out from that. So I really feel that I am about to do that, obviously, because I really like nature, Mother Nature, but I really need this kind of trips and tricks and everything, any kind of support. So the more people that surround me with this kind of logic and attitude, it inspires me, and I also learn from them. So that's why I'm really eager to learn more about this topic and be part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. As well as Csaba, I've been also kind of different generation because I've been somehow active in the climate movement for more over 12 years. And it helped me to cope, beside others, also with my own issues, deeply personal issues, which were somehow connected with the environmental anxiety, especially after my daughter and later also my son were born. And it helps me to feel that at least sometimes I do things which make sense a bit and which are really important. So this is my really strong motivation, and it's very, very connected with being mother, and with the imagination that after some years, when my kids will be bigger and they will ask me how can we let this happen, I want to be sure that I will honestly look into their eyes, and I will say that I do my best. So this is my main motivation, and this is something which is really important for me.
Okay, so thank you for participating in this session, and we hope you will enjoy the rest of the conference. And yeah, just generally thank you for sharing your thoughts.